Welcome to the podcast about being unmessable with, no matter what life throws at you. Here is your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio.
Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessable with the podcast. Today is Tip of the Week Tuesday, and I want to give you some access to intervening in messable with moments by being able to hack your triggers. Okay, what does that mean? First of all, you need to be aware that you get triggered, and everybody does. And I've worked with, everybody from teenagers to multi-millionaires to CEOs to housewives to actors to everybody you can imagine. And there's nobody that doesn't have triggers. What do I mean by a trigger? Something that hooks you, something that messes with you, something that throws you off your game. It might be a person, it might be somebody saying a particular thing. It might be when people criticize you, quote unquote. You feel criticized, you get hooked. You feel disrespected, you get hooked. You feel like people aren't listening to you, you get hooked. Whatever it is that makes you hookable, you could interchange hookable with triggerable. Now, the first step to hacking your triggers is to notice when you're being triggered. I call that a red flag. So, what do I mean by red flag? Is the physical symptom of being messable with, the physical symptom of your trigger. Maybe it's a tight chest. Maybe it's a dry throat. Maybe your face gets hot and red. Whatever's happening physically is like an indicator or a red flag that you are going down a road of what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack. So when you are in those messable with moments, those triggering moments, what's happening in your brain is you are going into survival mode. You are going into fight, flight, or freeze mode, an amygdala hijack, where you basically have left the building and you are reacting to survive, almost like a mountain lion is coming at you back in the day, and you would flee or freeze or fight to survive and have your life survive. But in this case, it's mostly not mountain lions coming at you. It's conversations with your boss or with your employees or with your spouse or your in-laws. So those kinds of situations, although they're not technically life threatening, they seem to your brain like they're life threatening. So you react in a way you would to save your life. So that's why you end up not being able to create or respond in any kind of thoughtful way, because you are reacting and hooked or triggered or messable with. So first, you got to notice the red flag. Now, why I want you to see what happens physically when those things happen is because if you can catch the physical symptom, you have a greater likelihood of rerouting your brain to a different space so that you can actually be responding versus reacting. So if you see the red flag happening, the tight chest, the upset stomach, whatever it is that is your red flag, you can go, oh, okay, I'm about to be messable with. Let me stop. And you create what I call a hack. And it's got to be something physical that you don't normally do to intervene and interrupt the brain patterns that are sending you down that triggering road. So it could be something like you tap your knees, or it could be that you shake your hands out, or maybe you stretch above your head, because that might not be something that you normally do. You have to do something that is conscious, that's deliberate, that you've designed in advance to be able to intervene in you being triggered. So once you intervene, you've sort of gotten yourself to neutral. And now you have an opportunity to create a different path to go down. Now, the problem is, in the heat of the moment, creating a new path is very difficult because everything is pulling for the reaction. Everything is pulling for your annoyance or your irritation or your fear or whatever your brain is detecting that is the threat in that moment. The mountain lion is out and you've got to survive. So what I've found is really useful, and what I coach my clients to do is pre-create a space to go to. And this could be anything that really is consistent with your vision in life. So if you have a vision in life to, be self-expressed and at peace or at home, or, in full communication. Whatever your vision is, you create that space in advance so that in those moments, those heat of the moments, kind of messable with moments, you have another road to go down once you get yourself to neutral. There's a whole world of the kinds of actions you could take that would manifest your vision. So if your vision is peace, there are actions you could take that would presence peace, that would manifest or move you closer to the world of peace than that world of reaction. I had a client who, she would argue with her husband, and everything he said, just sort of, not everything, but a lot of what he said irritated her, and she would get irritated. Her chest would get tight. And she came up with a hack where she would breathe 3 times, and she created a new space of being loving. And one of the actions she created is to give him a hug or make him a cup of tea. So she had something to go to. She didn't have to come up with it in the heat of the moment. She pre-created the space and pre-created 2 or 3 actions so that in those moments she could start to act on her vision versus react to a threat, whether it's real or imaginary. The threat sends you into reaction, or that amygdala hijack. So hacking your triggers has to do with being aware of the red flag that you are being triggered, getting a hack that's physical to bring you to neutral, and having a pre-created space that you can take an action to fulfill on and to presence in the moment. So if peace is your vision, then maybe saying, you know what, let me just take a moment and I'll be right back to you in this conversation. I just need to take 30 seconds to gather my thoughts and I'll be right back to you. Or, let's say love is your pre-created space. It could be holding somebody's hand, even if you're in the middle of an argument. Just reaching out and being connected to that person can actually start to dissolve the upset and the reaction and send you down a new path, one that you created, not one that you just got caught up in. So try these things out. Try hacking your triggers. Notice when you're being triggered this week. See if you can hack it, get to neutral, and go to a pre-created space and let me know what you discover. And if you got value out of this tip today, make sure you rate and review and subscribe to the episode below and share it with anybody you know that gets triggered. Oh, which is everyone. All right. Have a great week. I'll see you on the next episode of Be Unmessable With, the podcast. Thank you again for tuning in to this week's episode of Be Unmessable With, the podcast. And I never take for granted that you spend time with me. And I always want to make sure that you get value when you do. So I am including in the show notes a link for you for our Basics of Being Unmessable With workbook. It's a 12-page workbook that gives you all the basics of developing yourself to be unmessable with no matter what life throws at you, to be able to shift from the world of reaction to creation on a dime. And it'll give you a whole practice that you can implement in your daily life over and over and over again. So click on the link below and grab that 12-page workbook and let me know what you discover as you engage with it. Have a great week.